you support a federal takeover of Washington, D.C., as the
Well,
president has suggested?
Yeah, that is a decision for the president. And I think that what the president was saying is that we're seeing far too much crime being committed by young people, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, that I can't get my hands on. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures, but, young people are coddled. And they don't need to be coddled anymore. They need to be held accountable. They shouldn't be going to arts and crafts in family court. They need to understand that enough is enough and that the D.C. Council has to repeal some of these absurd ordinances and laws that they've had passed that do nothing to protect the people of this city and of this district. And I will reference a case that I wrote an op-ed piece on that I've been talking about for weeks. A young person gets on a bus with an illegal gun. There is a family on the bus. He makes a decision to shoot someone in the chest. To me, that's intent to kill. But for the grace of God, that individual did not die. Now, he's got a gun. It's illegal. He used the gun. Guess what the sentence was? I got a conviction. The sentence was probation. We can't have that. And by the way, he wasn't a kid. He was 19. These are the rules of the D.C. Council. They've got to be changed. We've got to have the ability to let young people know that they're going to be accountable. And if you look at some of these pictures of these kids being beaten by crews and bloodied up, and you want to tell me that, it's only a kid who did it, no. Take a look at the bloodied up face and body, and you'll know that it's more than little kids doing this kind of thing.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about liberals now outraged over President Trump declaring that it may be time for a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. due to the fact that Washington, D.C. is too crime plagued. Okay, there are too many incidences that are happening, not just to normal, regular, everyday people, but you talk about federal employees, government employees, staffers. There are too many incidences that are happening where people are getting killed or seriously hurt or injured as a result of the out of control crime, violence, and chaos that is happening in that city, mainly as a result of the young scholars, right? Young teenagers who are engaging in carjackings, murders, robberies, like the most heinous crimes that you can imagine are being perpetrated by our quote unquote youth, right? And that is why President Trump is now making calls to potentially have a federal takeover of Washington, D.C., maybe bringing in the National Guard to help fight crime in Washington, D.C. Take a look.
Of two teenage carjacking suspects in the district has gotten the attention of President Trump, who is threatening again to take over the city.
And that's because one of the victims is a former DOGE employee whose name was often in the headlines as many federal employees were being let go.
In D.C., are you considering taking over the D.C. police? Is that an option on the table?
We're considering it, yeah, because the crime is ridiculous. I could show you a chart comparing D.C. to other locations, and you're not going to want to see what it looks like. It was just up on television, actually, they were showing it. Now, we want to have a great, safe capital, and we're going to have it. And that includes cleanliness and it includes other things. We have a capital that's very unsafe. We just almost lost a young man, beautiful, handsome guy that got the hell knocked out of him the night before last. And I'm going to call him now. We wanted to give him a little recovery time. We just put a call into him. They're calling back in a little while, but he went through a bad situation, to put it mildly, and there's too much of it. We're gonna do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes the graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it. And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too.
And do you want Congress to look at overturning the D.C. Home Rule Act?
We're going to look at that. In fact, the lawyers are already studying it. We have to run D.C. This has to be the best run place in the country, not the worst run place in the country. And it has so much potential, and we're going to take care of it. You're going to be safe. You're going to be safe walking down streets. You're not going to get mugged.
Our Washington, D.C. reporter Felicia Ashley joining us live from the D.C. Bureau. So, Felicia, you spoke to people on both sides of the law on what this means and what this could look like.
I spoke to multiple people who either were or are responsible for safety here on D.C. streets. Now, there are two sides. Some aren't even batting an eye at the president's recent threats. Others say they feel people are not taking this seriously enough. And I spoke to multiple former MPD officers, and I also spoke to a trial attorney who had a lot to say about the president's recent threats. They say that people should stay aware because federal involvement could lead to laws being enforced. There's more severe laws being enforced and also in a more intense way. Now, I spoke to 24-year MPD vet Ronald Hampton and a trial attorney, Timothy Maloney, about the president's most recent takeover threat. If the president is saying what he's seeing here in D.C. as it relates to crime is not enough when it comes to tackling it, from your experience within MPD, what is needed or what can be done, whether it's from the administration or from federal government, to continue bringing down the crime?
I would like to see our local leaders use a little bit more imagination and vision when it comes to the kind of quote-unquote crime prevention programs. For example, the mayor of Baltimore has implemented several programs and things that we used to do years ago. The schools are staying open late in Baltimore. The rec centers are staying open late.
I think it's a lot of chest beating on the part of the president. But the fact is that there are things the president can do to put pressure on the local government, such as taking over the police department or pressuring Congress to nullify some laws. For instance, Congress nullified the D.C. criminal code revision a few years ago. So the federal government is not without power. And the reason is that the District of Columbia is a federally created district. It's been that way since 1789.
The Office of the Attorney General prosecutes juvenile crimes and said in part today that when MPD brings us cases with sufficient evidence of juveniles who have broken the law and hurt people, we will prosecute them and ensure they face consequences for their actions. Now, the OAG's full statement will be attached to this web story on WJLA.com. MPD did say they arrested two 15-year-olds from Maryland in this attack, and they say they're looking for additional suspects. But for now, reporting live from the D.C. Bureau.
Yeah, see, seeing that, you heard that. Now, black liberals on CNN, they're triggered by this because apparently they don't want to have a safe Washington, D.C., right? They're really upset. They're really mad because President Trump is considering cracking down on crime in D.C. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Starting at age 14, he said if D.C. doesn't get his act together and quickly, we'll have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize the city. And just to put up with what's happened with crime in Washington, D.C., assault with dangerous weapons, robbery, violent crime, property crime, all down.
But let's be clear. The Washington City...
Again, notice how he didn't mention homicides, which are up compared to the proper time frame, right? If you look at homicides over the past 15 years, they're up. They're up. Okay? You already have more homicides in D.C. You have about 100 year to date already than they had in all of 2012. In fact, from a homicide perspective, D.C. is one of the most dangerous cities, not just in the country, but in the world, right? In the world, okay? D.C. is a dangerous place, okay? But if you listen to these people talk, they'll make it seem like, oh, God, everything is great. And that all of these reports about crime being out of control is just right-wing conspiracy theories. When basically you have these liberal cities rigging their crime statistics to make them look better than they actually are. And on top of that, the one statistic that, is hard to rig, homicides, yeah, that one's not going down, right? Not compared to, again, the proper time frame, right? We're not talking about compared to a year ago. We're talking about compared to even just, 5, 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah, homicides are not in a good place. But again, they ignore stuff like this and they want to push this narrative that crime is down when that's not how people are feeling. People can tell the difference between what it was like 10 years ago versus what it's like today. So you can cite all the fake BS statistics all you want, but people know how they feel when it comes to crime. And people feel like crime is more out of control today than it's been since the 90s. That's how people feel, especially in these major liberal cities.
City Council had a bill to reduce sentences for crimes across the board, and it was so bad that Democrats in Congress joined with Republicans to stop it. The Washington City Council is, in fact, a cesspool of far-left radicalism.
Oh my
That is
God.
the truth.
First of all, this president has his hand full. He needs to just go and stay on the federal level. Now, I didn't know, Scott, that my Republican colleagues now all of a sudden believe in bigger government. If that's what they believe in, that government should come in and take over, let's go ahead and start with Medicare for all. 68,000 Americans die every single year. Millions are underinsured. If this how y'all rolling, if this how y'all rolling, let's roll.
Again, this argument is so stupid, it's so dumb, right? I'm not even surprised that progressives would even try to participate in this line of argument, because this type of stuff sounds intelligent to dumb people, right? To stupid people. Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. You're right. You got him, Nina Turner. You got him on that. If the federal government can take over DC, then the federal government can take over all of healthcare, right? That's essentially the argument that's being made, right? I think that it is a little bit different for the federal government to take over DC, which again already is under the control of the federal government, right? You have an independent government only because the federal government allows that independence. But again, it is a federal district, right? It is ultimately the responsibility of the federal government in regards to what happens in DC. Okay, that's not the same thing as the government taking over the whole healthcare system and not allowing private insurance, which is what Nina Turner is ignorantly comparing the proposed takeover of DC to, claiming that that is big government. No, that is not big government, okay? Washington, D.C. is already under the jurisdiction of the federal government. The federal government coming in and saying, hey, the people who are running this, who we're allowing to run it, aren't running it responsibly. We have a responsibility to protect federal workers, okay, to protect the citizens that live in this federal district. That is, again, not big government. That is just the government, unfortunately, having to step in and to do what the independent government refuses to do, right? And that's essentially what's happening. That's what's happening. So again, this whole, well, this is big government argument is really stupid. It's really silly.
Is there agreement there?
Let's do this, Scott. I'm just going to tell you right now, the plight of American hero Big Balls has set off a firestorm in the Republican Party. This kid who worked for the DOGE guys, didn't shut down any diners that I know of, but he's out of the government now. He goes out on the street.
Just infiltrated all of our information.
He protects a woman from being attacked by a roving street gang, and he had the crap kicked out of him. And, we had a congressional intern murdered not too long ago. I'm just telling you, Republicans right now have about had it with the violence and the idea that you can't even walk around D.C. right now without getting attacked by street gangs.
Don't we have laws on the books already?
400 carjackings,
they're not being enforced.
I served on local government. There is no elected official worth their salt on any level of government. That is okay.
That's correct.
With innocents being attacked.
That's
and
correct.
It's wrong, Scott Jennings.
What do you
it's
mean?
Wrong.
What's wrong?
It's wrong to characterize it in that way.
DC is a violent place where people don't feel safe.
There are many violent places.
Okay, so
all
DC,
across the country.
It's wrong to tell the truth. It's wrong to tell the truth. I'm gonna tell you why they're saying that. They're saying that because DC is one of these predominantly black districts, right? This is one of these predominantly black places, and we all know again who's committing the majority of those crimes in DC, and that's why these people are so offended, right? This is why they're so triggered over this idea of telling the truth about DC, which is that it is a violent place.
Okay, so again, Donald Trump is demagoguing the issue. Is there violent crime in D.C.? Yep, just like everywhere.
Did the city council there try to reduce sentencing?
Yes, they did, and that was a problem, and that they changed that, and crime is down. Violent crime is down in D.C. in all those categories by between 20 and 30%. As a matter of fact, D.C.'s violent crime, homicides, is down one of the lowest rates in major cities across the country. So Donald Trump is taking.
You're saying you feel safe?
So Donald Trump, yes, actually, I do feel safe in D.C. I'm sorry that you don't, but the problems in D.C. are Donald Trump is cherry picking, and so he's using this so that he can try to assert his imperialistic, wannabe fantasy of taking over D.C., which he's done before, because he wants to if there's protests, he wants to bring in the National Guard, he wants to take over, and that's a problem. Now, he can't do that. He can't just with the stroke of a pen do that. There's something called home rule that's been in place since 1973, and that came out of the civil rights movement, so that D.C., which was a majority black city, could have control over their local issues. Now, if Donald Trump wants to go to Congress, and which he would have to do in order to take over D.C., well, then let them go ahead and have that argument, and then they can talk about D.C. statehood.
By the way, y'all skirted the issue. Nina asked something. She asked a very direct question. The question was, when something is so bad, are you guys in favor of federalizing it? Are you guys in favor of big government swooping in and taking it over? And if the conversation in D.C. is so bad that you're in favor of that, then I would ask, are you in favor of that when it comes to poverty? Are you in favor of that when it comes to health care?
We have federalized all these things.
You have not. Like what I'm saying is,
by definition federalized.
For you guys who are the small government advocates,
not a state.
Are you okay with Donald Trump coming in?
D.C. is a jurisdiction of the federal government. It is a subdivision of the federal government. It's not a state. No, it does not have home rule.
So you don't think D.C. should have home rule?
No.
So then what's the 1973 act that gave D.C. home rule? No, I'm just curious.
D.C. is subject to Congress's jurisdiction. It is a federal district.
Let me ask you this. Outside of D.C.
Yeah, so I cannot stress you guys enough how stupid and unintelligent Tweedledee and Tweedledum are, right? They're really stupid. They're really, really, really stupid. First of all, this guy is asking a gotcha question. Because, again, this is what happens when you're more concerned about gotchas rather than asking honest questions and really trying to understand an issue, okay? Because this dude clearly is ignorant of the fact that D.C. is already a federal district, right? So having the federal government take over D.C. is literally just the government saying, hey, we're going to exercise the power and control that we already have over the government. We just allow, quote unquote, home rule of D.C. in order for them to be able to run the district independently. But all of that is subject to be overturned by the federal government, right? By Congress, okay? All of those things can be overturned. Like, there's no law in D.C. that cannot be overturned by the federal government, by Congress, okay? Congress has the ultimate control over the budget, over the laws, how the District of Columbia is run. Now, again, they allow, quote unquote, home rule, independent control, okay? But that doesn't mean that they're completely independent. Again, this guy, why is he sitting at a CNN table, a CNN panel, if he doesn't understand something as basic as the fact that DC is already federalized, right? If you don't understand something like that, if you don't understand that basic, why are you on the panel? Why are you discussing this topic if you don't understand something that basic? Because, again, this guy is so concerned about trying to get the gotcha. Oh, see, you conservatives, you aren't for a small government, that he doesn't even understand the basics of what he's talking about. Because if he did, he wouldn't be asking a stupid question like that, right? That's only a question that you ask when you have no understanding of what the hell you're talking about. Happens all the time with these people, right? So, it's just funny to me because the whole small government thing is just, it's not like these people support small government. And what these people got to understand when it comes to the difference between conservatives and libertarians on small government is that conservatives believe in small government in the ideal scenario, right? In the ideal society that has the correct morals and values, okay, where law and order is enforced. Yes, conservatives believe in small government because in the ideal society, you don't need big government, right? Society polices itself. You don't need the government to come in and police society because, again, society can police itself through morals, values, religion, right? However, if society can't do that, then yes, conservatives do believe in having the government come in and to, again, enforce law in order to promote morality, religion, ethics. Like, that is what conservatives believe in, right? Again, ideally, we don't want to have the government come in, but if we have to, in order to enforce morality on society, then that's what we have to do, right? Libertarians, on the other hand, may believe that regardless of the morality, religion, ethics, of society, that it is just fundamentally important to have small government no matter what. And you want to limit government as much as possible, regardless of the consequences. Conservatives don't go quite that far, right, when it comes to small government. So a lot of people asking this question, again, not only do they not really understand the fact that D.C. is already federalized, but also they don't understand the difference between a conservative and a libertarian on this topic of small government, right? So again, I don't really understand why CNN continues to bring on individuals like this to have these discussions, but this is how low they've stooped as a network.
Any other place that has an issue with violent crime? Violent crime.
Are there any other federal districts?
Right. I'm talking about you.
Yeah. So again, in an ideal world, these places that have issues with violent crime, their local leaders would deal with it, and the people of those cities would vote those Democrats out that are running these cities into the ground. However, that's not what we're seeing, right? In a lot of these liberal cities, we're seeing these voters complain about crime and then vote for the same lunatics that are allowing the crime. And if that's the case, then hey, they should just suffer the consequences, right? I don't necessarily believe that the federal government should step in if liberals want to run their cities into the ground. But again, that's not what we're talking about here with DC. It's not the same thing, right? We're not talking about the federal government going into an independent state, okay, taking over some city across the country. That's not what we're talking about with DC. We're talking about a federal district where the federal government has an obligation to protect its employees, right? To protect the people who are living within the district, because ultimately the federal government is responsible for what happens in that district and how things are administrated. So when you have the quote unquote independent government, right, the home rule that when they're not doing their jobs, when they're inadequate, okay, at providing basic protections, then yeah, the federal government unfortunately will have to step in and take over and to do what they have to do to protect folks. It's really that simple. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.